Number 5. One of the earliest on Baba's prediction list is that by 2023, Earth will have shifted sufficiently enough to alter its orbit. And we don't fully know what she means by that, but I can tell you that if Earth's orbit were to change at all, the consequences would be absolutely disastrous. I'm not entirely sure how Earth is supposed to shift orbit. Maybe we're all gonna get too heavy, we'll throw the gravity off, maybe we're jumping around too much. Anyway, the universe works in a very specific way. It's very finely crafted. Everything is exactly where it should be. And if that balance gets thrown off, it'll affect, well, just about everything. The Earth shifting its orbit would immediately result in increased temperatures, soaking the world in radiation. Increased temperatures would lead to glaciers melting, sea levels rising, and that usually leads into chaos across the globe. Of course, if we shifted off our orbit, it wouldn't stop there. We'd also experience a new ice age and crushing periods of extended darkness, which would spell disaster in ways we couldn't even comprehend on the ecosystems. And most worrisome of all, we would basically give vampires a key to the Earth. I have to assume that our position in the solar system is the only thing preventing them from taking over right now. Like I mentioned, this is supposedly supposed to occur in 2023, so luckily we can find out really soon if this one is coming true, and for all of our sakes, I sincerely hope not. Number 4. Civil unrest. In that big old book of chilling quatrains, our good friend Nostradamus had this to write. The trumpet shakes with great discord, and agreement broken. Lifting the face to heaven, the bloody mouth will swim with blood, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Probably the most outright sinister sounding of any of Nostradamus' prediction, unless the trumpet shaking with great discord just means there's going to be an awesome marching band parade going through the world. This one could mean a lot, but analysts and experts of Nostradamus' work generally agree that they think this is predicting a time of great civil unrest, dated for 2022. In the last couple years, we've already seen more civil unrest globally than we have before, with protests all over the globe for a number of social causes and pressing concerns. It's not unlikely at all to think that this sleeping discontent in the masses is going to keep rising, and it's very likely there will be more protests. This could tie in with a point we made in the previous Nostradamus video, in which he highlighted a prediction for 2022 that said he believed that inflation and starvation would rise so much that so high the price of wheat that man is stirred to his fellow man to eat in his despair. Now obviously that could be taken literally, and I sincerely hope not, because I don't think I would taste good at all. I'm a bit stringy, and I eat terribly, so I would be awful for your diet. No, instead, myself and others think that it's alluding to the eat the rich sentiment and movement, and that these two predictions are linked together. We've already seen so much unrest and so many protests for years from people struggling to get by, and as wages stay the same and working conditions worsen across the globe, it's increasingly worrisome that maybe someday it's all boiling into something really, really big. Finishing off in the original quatrain, Nostradamus wrote, "Sooner and later, you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances." So maybe there's some positivity out of it, some great changes. Maybe we'll all get a 4-day weekend. We just have to ignore the dreadful horrors, I guess. Number 3. Another of her predictions say that by the year 2046, technology will have advanced sufficiently enough that the average life expectancy will raise past 100 due to rises in organ transplant technology and prosthetic and cybernetic implants. Now that is something I can really get into. I have been wanting cybernetic everything since I saw Luke get that sweet robot hand in Star Wars. This technology has been advancing with every year, with the stuff of former sci-fi legend becoming more and more practical and real. The prediction goes on to state that in the near future, organs will be grown and sold like any other product, developed en masse and distributed internationally. And the ramifications of that would be unbelievable. Imagine for a minute how many illnesses and diseases would just disappear overnight if you were able to order a new kidney on Amazon and have it delivered to your house the next day. While we're not quite at the level where we're 3D printing lungs and shipping them out, scientists have actually been experimenting with growing human organs in labs, with liver buds being grown from human stem cells. Now the technology is still pretty far off, with these little mini organoids lacking key features that real organs do, like, growing, mostly being used to study for now, but in some cases, these lab-grown organs have actually been transplanted into mice successfully. So who's to say what progress will look like in the next 10 years' time? Well, Baba Vanga, I guess, she's the one to say, that's why we're doing this. Number 2. Another of Baba's predictions is that the world will experience something called a solar tsunami. And if the name isn't enough of an indicator, it really does not sound that pleasant. So if you are picturing a delightful wave of summer sun, why don't you keep thinking that? A solar storm is a burst of energy from the sun which sends electrical charges, magnetic fields, and radiation towards the Earth. This effect is what creates the northern lights, which are very pretty, but the solar tsunami Vanga predicted would be one of cataclysmic proportions, claiming that it would be powerful as billions upon billions of nuclear weapons descending on the Earth. Solar storms are predicted to cause mass damage to technology, causing worldwide blackouts, with some doomsayers going so far as to say that it could cause a worldwide technological shutdown, sending humanity back to the Dark Ages. Might be the first thing to get me off my phone for 5 minutes, so maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. This kind of thing does occur already on a much smaller scale, with some smaller solar waves causing radio blackouts, but luckily, nothing on a massive scale of a full-blown solar tsunami has occurred yet. Baba Vanga never gave a time or a date for when she thought the solar tsunami would occur, just that it was on the horizon for humanity, and we should be expecting it, I guess, sometime. So I guess keep checking the weather app, and if it shuts down while you're checking it, and all the lights turn off in your house, yeah, that's probably a bad sign. Maybe, I don't know, get into the bunker, stock up on tuna and beans. Number 1. I know, we just did a virus. Well, keep the masks around maybe. Because before her passing, Baba Vanga predicted that due to climate change melting the ice around the world, a new virus would be discovered in Siberia and the world would experience another pandemic. I don't know, a sequel that's similar to the first? I feel like it's been done before, kind of played out. Well, in July 2021, a team of researchers discovered within 2 samples of ice from the Tibetan Plateau that contained ancient viruses, locked away and preserved in the virus like the mosquito from Jurassic Park in the amber. According to the analysts, these ice samples were at least 15,000 years old. The researchers also discovered embedded within the ice samples were 33 viral genetic codes. While 4 of the codes were recognized viruses that usually attack bacteria, the remaining 28 genetic codes were novel, meaning that this is the first time they've been discovered, like a time capsule just full of stuff to make you cough. Coming in hot at number 5 is the Rapture, a true vintage as far as doomsday prophecies go. The Rapture is a belief in Christian faith held by few, notably an American evangelical belief, referring to an apocalyptic level event that describes the day Jesus returns, which will be heralded by the pious, righteous believers being ascended to the heavens to sit up in the clouds and clink glasses with Tupac and Elvis, while those that remain will have to fend for themselves on the desecrated earth, which will be taken over by the Antichrist and his army of demons. Although when I describe it like that, it makes it sound a lot more like it's the plot to Doom. The Rapture has no specific date, instead sort of existing in a it'll happen when it happens kind of state, which means it's great for making predictions of, because roughly once a week, someone will say we've got the Rapture coming and thankfully be proven wrong. But the way things have been going lately, it's hard not to believe it could be coming anytime soon. We've got plagues, war, I think we just need conquest and famine, and we've got ourselves all the horsemen of the apocalypse neatly lined up outside a stable. To take a quick second to lighten your load, if you've been liking what we do at Top 5 Scary, why not toss a little subscribe our way? I promise we don't only talk about end of days prophecies. We keep it scary, but we keep it light. Number 4. Baba Vanga was a blind Bulgarian clairvoyant, famous for several predictions, a lot of which have worryingly come true. For example, many people believe she accurately predicted Princess Diana's passing, the September attacks, and the 2004 tsunami. Although Baba Vanga passed away in 1994, she left us with several worrying predictions for the future. She claimed in 2022 that we would experience another pandemic, as researchers would uncover a virus in Siberia, and there would be flooding and drought across the world, a famine in India due to temperature drops causing locust storms, and concerningly a virtual reality takeover. Already we've seen some examples of this coming true. The UK experienced the driest summer it had ever been since the 30s, being declared an official drought in August. France, Italy, and Portugal have all experienced record-breaking droughts as well this year. She predicted specifically Australia would experience a flood, and in July of 2022, Sydney experienced 4 months worth of rain in just 4 days, leading to flooding. So, okay. Some of the blind clairvoyance predictions are coming true. That's stressful, but what does she have for her future? Well, don't start buying lottery tickets just yet, because Baba doesn't have anything too welcoming. She predicted that by 2023, Earth will change orbit, and by 2046, people will be living for hundreds of years through advanced technology. That part I don't mind so much. I wouldn't mind some robot hands. By 2100, she believed that the Earth's orbit will have changed sufficiently that the Earth will have moved too far, and an eternal night will fall over the sky. Not to worry though, she predicted for us that the Earth Earth and mankind as a whole would end by 5079. So it's only, nearly 3,000 years of dark suffering. Absolutely great for the vampires, terrible for us. Number 3. We all have an opinion on Elon Musk, I'm sure. Me personally, I still haven't forgiven him for breaking up with Grimes, and Grimes, if you're watching, I'm open. Regardless of whether you think Musk is a brilliant mind or just a moron with a Twitter account, he's been very outspoken about his fear of AI, warning that by the year 2025, things are going to get unstable or weird, in his own words. He's spoken out about it for years, opining that something needs to be done or regulated on an international level. Maybe that's why the guy is so eager to get off the planet and get onto a spaceship to Mars. This is something he is very passionate about, warning us that it's going to affect our lives in ways we can't even imagine. We are the first species capable of self-annihilation. It's hard to disagree. I mean, just in our lifetime, AI has already accelerated to technology once only thought possible in sci-fi. And if I have to be completely honest, not to be too pessimistic, I don't know if I trust humanity to be that responsible with technology. If you need some comfort though, and you're looking for a reason to not toss Siri into a blender just yet, Musk also claimed in 2011 that he would put a man on Mars by 2021, and I don't remember anyone talking about that too much, so he's not right all the time. However, Musk isn't the only notable tech figure who was concerned about AI. Stephen Hawking spoke out in 2017 and claimed that if left unchecked, AI could be the worst event in the history of our civilization. It brings dangers like powerful autonomous weapons or new ways for the few to oppress the many. I don't know about you, but if one of the smartest men to have ever been on Earth says that we should probably be careful for AI for fear of creating a machine race, Skynet, or maybe something that's going to put us all in the Matrix, maybe it's something to consider, Maybe not everything needs a Wi-Fi connection. Number 2. Pretty much since we built the nuclear bombs, we have been deeply concerned that we're going to all use them on each other. I don't think anyone involved with nuclear weapons thinks we're going to get up to anything good with them, unless you are a really big Fallout fan and you have just been itching for a chance to roam the wasteland and fight feral ghouls. In 1947, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists created the Doomsday Clock as a graphic reminder of how eerily close we might be at any minute towards complete annihilation. As the hand inches towards midnight, it represents how close we are at any given moment to nuclear winter. As of this video, we are currently sitting at 100 seconds to midnight. It stood at 100 seconds for 3 years, but as the Bulletin's official website reads, steady is not good news. It means we haven't been taking it seriously enough yet. The Bulletin urges the Russian and US presidents to identify comprehensive, actionable solutions on limiting nuclear weapon delivery systems, as well as seeking to eliminating the sole authority of launching a nuclear weapon falling in a single leader's hands, urging countries with nuclear capabilities to do the same. The demand to control nuclear weapons has been more relevant than it has in years, with growing fears all over. Full-scale nuclear conflict is one of the most real and present dangers facing humanity. And really, all it takes is one to set off a chain of dominoes none of us can come back from. Except cockroaches. They will be totally fine. They'll probably be flourishing, actually. Happier in their lane. Number 1. Nostradamus was a French astrologer, physician, and probably history's most well-known seer. He's like the Michael Jordan of predicting cryptic doom sayings and warnings. He's the original Doomsday prophet, and while thankfully none of his more apocalyptic predictions have happened yet, he's been disturbingly accurate for the last 6 centuries, and his predictions have enlightened us just as much as they have terrified us. He was able to predict things no one should have. Most recently, seemingly accurately predicting the circumstances surrounding the passing of Queen Elizabeth and her succession by Prince Charles. Nostradamus made many predictions, but one of his most jarring is this delightful little passage right here. For 40 years, the rainbow will not be seen. For 40 years, it will be seen every day. The dry earth will grow more parched, and there will be great floods when it is seen. Okay, so 40 years without Skittles, and then 40 years of Skittles. That is the sole thing he is referring to vis-a-vis rainbows, right? I wish. Now, some have theorized that this could be referring to the scorching of a world annihilated after a nuclear. But it's also possible that it could be referring to a natural collapse of the world, from the climate changing worryingly fast in a lot of ways that are becoming increasingly difficult to control. 2022, for example, was the 6th hottest record year in human history, with countries across the globe experiencing record-breaking heat waves. The Antarctic sea ice hit another record low, and it might be hard to take that in any other way than the most pessimistic option, because it does kind of sound like the earth is going to grow dry and somehow also start overflowing with floods, and we're all going to start having to fight wars over water like we're in Mad Max. Much like what Baba Vanga was speaking of, things are getting dangerously close. regarding climate change across the globe. Unlike most doomsday prophecies, this one has a very clear and concerning path that, unless we make some serious changes, could stand a dangerous chance at becoming true. Number 5, the Queen and the royal family.
Golden thread running through the generations. That's how one of Queen Elizabeth II's many prime ministers described her reign, the longest in British history.
One of the most concerningly accurate predictions our boy Michelle predicted was that in 2022, Queen Elizabeth would pass and her son would take her place, but abdicate his position. In his original writings in 1555, Nostradamus wrote, "At the end of the war, the great powers change. Near the shore, 3 beautiful children are born, ruin to the people when they are of age, to change the country's kingdom and see it grow no more. The children are Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip's grandchildren, Prince William, Henry, and Princess Beatrice." The conflict could refer to the 1982 Malvinas War between the UK. Princess Diana gave birth to William 7 days after the war ended. Could Nostradamus be claiming that the end of Queen Elizabeth could be the end of the monarchy? Well, another writing of his adds to that. Check this out. "Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who later they considered unworthy, the people will force out the king of the islands, and a man will replace him who never expected to be king." Now, if you're like me and you struggle a bit to decipher centuries-old riddles, there are experts like Mario Reading, a British author, to do it for us. Reading explains the thinking, writing that after the Queen's death, Prince Charles will be crowned and become king of the islands. That part's already happened. However, a certain proportion of the British population, following his divorce from Diana, still persists that the pressure on him is so great and his age so much against him that Charles will agree to abdicate in favor of his elder son, Prince William. So it sounds like before he was even born, Nostradamus could sense that no one wanted King Charles. That obvious, huh? And hey, here's a prediction from me. By the end of this video, you'll subscribe to Top 5 Scary for scary videos every day and the best host in the game. I got a strong feeling I'm right. Number 4. Another claim for 2023 is that we will experience the end of natural live births altogether. Vanga claimed that going forward, all birthing will be done in laboratories. World leaders will decree what the people of each nation should look like, and they will be able to finely tune their physical and appearances like we're all characters in The Sims. Now that actually might be kind of fun. Do you think we'll be able to do that after we've already been born? Wouldn't mind customizing myself up a little bit, tighten up the jaw, add a couple cool scars, maybe one over the eye like Geralt. This one is definitely a bit out there compared to some of the other ones on the list, but there is some truth to the words. The birth rate is declining right now. In 1950, the birth rate was 36.9% per 1,000 people, while now it's only 18.5%. And some analysts predict by 2050 it could dip as low as 14.6%. So maybe in the future we will start to see more of a push towards this kind of thing. Lab birth and all that. That bit about world leaders deciding what their people look like though, I don't know about that. I feel like people would disagree with that. What if the current leader only wants children that look like Danny DeVito? You're really gonna wait 9 months for a Danny DeVito baby? A whole society of DeVitos run it? No, actually, the more I'm talking about this, I want this. This is a prediction I hope comes true. Number 3. Man, did this guy only ever predict depressing stuff? Could he not have just predicted just once that maybe it would be beautiful weather year round, the Leafs would have a good season, and the McRib would come back? No, sadly it was mostly doom prophecies. Check this one out. "No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in despair." International political instability, the pandemic, and Brexit have all contributed pretty nefariously to inflation. And let me tell you, as a guy who struggles to balance his checkbook, it has been a nightmare finding cheap honey. I'm serious, go on Amazon right now. Google raw honey and candle wax. Of all the things for a sage to be completely accurate on, I wasn't expecting it to be the economics of honey and wax, but hey, it's real. This is a personal issue I'm gonna have to set aside for now. But one has to wonder too with the phrase, his fellow man to eat in despair. Did Nostradamus have some insight into the popularity of the Eat the Rich movement? Well, that's always been a popular thing to spray paint over a bank wall or write on a poster board to take to a protest. After the pandemic, that sentiment has been more pronounced than ever in recent years, with large swaths of the population rightfully being upset about wage and income disparity that exists. It's hard enough for the common man to make a living out there, let alone being able to afford good, reliable honey. And if you know a supplier for that, drop a link please. My DMs are always open to talk honey. Number 2. If you asked me 5 years ago to predict what the future of finances would look like, I don't think I ever would have guessed the rise of NFTs or cryptocurrency. I mean, I don't think anyone could have estimated that we'd ever have an economy based around trading pictures of bored apes wearing sailor hats. Well, except of course Nostradamus could have predicted it, because he predicts everything. Could the French seer have predicted cryptocurrency? Take a quick listen to this. The copies of gold and silver inflated, which after the theft were thrown into the lake, at the discovery that all is exhausted and dissipated by the debt, all scripts and bonds will be wiped out. Recently, gold has been surging, and a whole wave and movement was born around moving towards cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, as a new infallible gold standard. Waves of Silicon Valley engineers and executives have left their high-level positions to pursue cryptocurrency startups, and the push to try and decentralize currency and move towards cryptocurrency has been very real in recent years and growing more and more. Could we really move away from physical cash altogether? Especially after the pandemic, we've seen more and more businesses and operations move towards cashless transactions altogether, moving towards all of our money being stored digitally, which stresses me out a lot because I have a hard time enough managing money when it's in front of me, let alone when it's imaginary. Maybe it's a lot to ask that Nostradamus could have predicted so much the idea of digital currency, but there's a lot to think about as ideas of a new form of currency taking shape. I've got to say though, if he really was as much of a prophet as they say he was, he would have invested in Bitcoin early, started seeing those real profits. Number 1. Keeping on his predictions about the technology of the future, could Nostradamus have predicted the rise of AI and the looming threat of a technological takeover? Honestly, more likely than you think. Feast your ear holes on this little stanza. The moon in the full of night over the high mountain, the new sage with a lone brain sees it, by his disciples invited to be immortal. Eyes to the south, hands in bosoms, bodies in the fire. Now, this does sound a little bit like something a wizard in a cave might whisper you over a crystal ball before sending you on a journey, but bear with it. Some experts firmly believe that this could be an allusion to the rise of the digital era. The new sage with a lone brain sees it by his disciples invited to be immortal. I don't want to stroke his ego too much by referring to them as sages, but Mark Zuckerberg has made it incredibly clear that he believes the future of the world and humanity as a whole is going to be virtual in his quest to create the metaverse, creating a world where literally the body will be left behind. Bodies in the fire, invited to be immortal. Do you think we could get to an era where we start living like we're in the Matrix, uploading our consciousness to a digital realm? What was once pure fantasy is encroaching on our reality closer and closer with each passing day, and I honestly think it'll be sooner than we're expecting before we're all living in that digital world. The world is an uncertain, scary place, full of mystery. If only we had a guide for the unknown before us. Well, we had Baba Vanga, the blind mystic from Bulgaria with a knack for soothsaying. What does she have for us today? Let's take a listen. Here's top 5 more Baba Vanga predictions that could come true soon. Let us know in the comments which Baba Vanga prediction you think is most likely to come true. Number 5 on our list for scary predictions from the Princess of Prognostication for 2023 is a nuclear meltdown. Vanga predicted that soon another nuclear meltdown will occur at a currently unnamed nuclear power plant that will explode. Now, followers of Vanga have cited Chernobyl as proof of the oracle's soothsaying, believing that she predicted it years before it occurred. Now, if you need anyone to spell out just how bad a nuclear meltdown would be, luckily, and I use that term extremely lightly, we have Chernobyl as a harrowing monument to the dangers of untethered nuclear power. Chernobyl, if you don't know from not having seen the HBO TV show or the Call of Duty 4 level, which is where I get most of my information about world issues and politics, was a nuclear power plant outside of Pripyat that experienced a horrific meltdown. When Chernobyl's reactor burst, the blast was equivalent to the force of 500 nuclear explosions. Now, 1 is already just about the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. 2 is pretty bad. 500 is inconceivable. So I don't think anyone among us wants another one. There is obviously some worry with current conflicts over Europe that this could be what Baba Vanga is predicting. Outside forces and damage could trigger a chain reaction that leads to severe, long-lasting consequences. Chernobyl still isn't habitable by humans, and scientists estimate it won't be for the next 20,000 years. Which is a shame because honestly it does look like it could be a cool place to live. The sights are pretty cool. We can't afford another Chernobyl anywhere in in the world with everything going on. In 1967 as well, Baba Vanga predicted that you would watch this video and give us a subscribe. It is just astonishing how well she was able to predict the future. Number 4, bioweaponry. I think we've all lived through enough biological disasters for one lifetime, right? I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with a bottle of hand sanitizer near me. Well, Vanga warns us that there could still be more on the horizon. One of her predictions for the near future is that she has prophesied that an unnamed big country will carry out bioweaponry research on human beings. She theorized that hundreds of thousands of people will be affected by these sinister experiments and that it could leak out into the rest of the world. Now, again, this goes without saying, but biological weaponry is banned worldwide. It's one of those things that really gets you into trouble. I mean, in 8th grade, I threw a booger at a girl and I was charged by the United Nations for biological warfare. The United Nations effectively bans any experiments or any conduct such as stockpiling viruses and dangerous bacteria, but, let's be honest, the UN says a lot of things and that doesn't stop everybody. There are some who theorize that bioweaponry is already being researched across the globe secretly. Things like weaponized viruses or chemical warfare, all very illegal, all very scary. I have played way too many of the Resident Evil games in my lifetime to not be terrified of bioweaponry. We've touched a bit on this subject on previous videos about Baba Vanga, but Baba Vanga predicted as well in 2022 that we would experience a new virus and a new pandemic. Recently, in 2021, researchers in Siberia uncovered 33 strains of novel viruses encased perfectly in ice, samples over 15,000 years old. Could this be what Vanga is referring to here? Personally, I think a secret organization making a bioweapon out of generations old viruses sounds way too much like the plot to a scary horror movie or video game than it does real life, so I'm very much hoping that Baba Vanga was wrong about this one. I mean, she's not always right, you know? You need a couple of them to be wrong to make the real ones stick out all the more. Number 3, virtual reality takeover. Hey, what's your favorite reality? Mine is occasionally this one, although I am pretty partial to some synthetic realities as well. It definitely seems like over the last few years I've spent more time inside digital worlds than I have paying attention to the world around me. I mean, can you blame me? Someone had to collect all those Korok seeds. Well, according to Baba Vanga, maybe we're all going to be spending a lot more time hooked up into our digital worlds. Vanga predicts that humanity is going to start absorbing itself into a virtual world. She said in 2022, people would spend more time online and in screens more than ever. Typical grandmother. It's hard to tell her she's wrong though. I mean, you're on a screen right now and I'm talking into a screen right now. We've seen the world become more online than ever in the past few years. Baba Vanga, you would have absolutely loved Black Mirror. They made like 5 seasons of that show. It was basically all about this. You don't really need to be a blind mystic with a gift for prophecy to predict that virtual reality is coming. I mean, Meta has made no secret about how they believe the metaverse to be the next greatest leap in human advancement. Although, if you want my advice, I think the visuals still need a little tweaking because I'm not sure that I want to leave behind all the beauty of the real human experience just to go live in a simulated reality where everything looks like I'm trapped in the loading screen for Wii Sports Bowling forever. Investors and tech startups are racing to be the one to perfect the metaverse. And I do think we'll get there eventually, 2007 graphics notwithstanding. Once we've plundered this beautiful world for all its natural resources and drained the seas and stars, I think we'll all come aboard Mark Zuckerberg's cold, desolate ark and live hooked up into the machine spirit. I'm very optimistic about the future, if you couldn't tell that. Number 2, water scarcity. What is the most important resource humanity has? Cadbury cream eggs? No. It's water, of course. As much as we think of water as an infinitely replenishing resource, we're running out of it faster than any of us would ever care to admit. Only 3% of all water on the world is fresh water, and 2/3 of that water is tucked away in frozen glaciers. The World Wildlife Foundation dictates that somewhere around 2.7 billion people find water scarce for at least 1 month of the year. Baba Vanga predicted that by 2022, the world would experience a global drought, leading to water shortages internationally. I mean, without it, we're nothing. And unless we all want to start wearing still suits like Dune, drinking our urine and sweat, we should probably try and do something about it, you know? Something on a big global scale, maybe, not just paper straws. Countries across the world are already experiencing shortages. It goes hand in hand with the rising temperatures seen globally, with temperatures in Europe nearing towards 50 degrees. The UK this year experienced one of its hottest hottest summers it had ever seen, and this year our July was the 6th hottest July on record, like ever, like since they started writing down information about how hot it was. This is one of those times where being really high up on a hottest list is not actually a good thing. Now, much like most people, I absolutely loved Mad Max Fury Road, but I think the parts that I thought were really cool were the cool cars and the leather jackets and punching guys in the sand, and not the part where post-apocalyptic tyrant warlords control the world by hoarding what limited water exists and oppressing the downtrodden. So I'd like to avoid that if we can. Also, I can't drive, so I don't really know how long I would last in the wasteland. Number 1, alien invasion. Our number 1 spot is also Vanga's most out there prediction, like out of this world out there. In 2022, Baba Vanga claims that an alien life is going to arrive on Earth traveling on an asteroid called Oumuamua to scope out the situation here. The name is Hawaiian in origin, meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. Kind of feel like if there was ever an asteroid that would very likely contain an envoy of visitors from another planet, it would have to be that one. I mean, listen to that name. Now, this asteroid is real, and it is an object from another solar system altogether, passing through for an intergalactic sightseeing tour. Now, not to burst your bubble too much, but this asteroid actually has already passed through Earth's orbit back in 2017, but I guess they didn't see anything too worthwhile yet. You know what, aliens, I gotta say, this isn't really the best time for us to have company right now over. As I've listed off in this video, we're kind of dealing with some problems right now. We're still kind of cleaning up a little bit. You know, give us some notice. We just need to clean out the cupboards, fix a few of our global catastrophes, end all conflicts, get everybody to be friends, and then we can have you guys over. Recently, NASA just deflected an asteroid in a historic moment, successfully deflecting an asteroid's course. Probably a huge flex to the aliens, letting them know straight up, hey, if you guys want to swing by on an asteroid and we're not feeling it, we can just push you out of the way with an interplanetary do not disturb sign. But don't feel too threatened about that, please, aliens. We were just trying out our new asteroid deflecting software. We're not the most friendly species, but if you guys want to come check out what we're doing, we can meet in the middle somewhere, maybe on some neutral ground. Maybe the moon. We put a flag up there, but I promise that's not ours. You know, we can just share that. Number 5, Mars landing. Among his many, many crypticisms, Nostradamus wrote a light on Mars failing. Now, initially, it seems like just a vague statement, until you remember that a few years ago, the Opportunity rover, which was traveling through Mars, broadcasted its last message from the surface of the red planet. Its last message read, "My battery is low and it's getting dark," which was the final transmission received from the Opportunity rover to NASA when the solar-powered robot was caught in a massive dust storm, described as one of the biggest dust storms observed on Mars, which engulfed the planet whole and turned the day into night, smothering the poor robot's battery, leading it to send that final, poignant transmission. Now, could this be the light on Mars failing that Nostradamus was referring to? It's hard to argue that it doesn't match up just a little bit eerily. I mean, come on, a light on Mars failing, and here you have a sad robot saying that its battery is dying out. Of course, this won't be the end of mankind's journey to the red planet. Succeeding the Opportunity rover is the Curiosity rover, which is currently roving around the rock right now as you watch this video. Elon Musk, billionaire and Twitter poster, has made no secret whatsoever of his goals for Mars, calling it his life's greatest work and a mission central to humanity. SpaceX has made several of their own predictions about sending men to Mars, with their earliest estimates being that by 2030 we will have manned crews walking the surface of Mars. One has to wonder if Nostradamus could have ever predicted man walking on the surface of another planet. It's hard for us to imagine that, but Musk and his company insists it'll be sooner than we think. Now, Nostradamus also predicted back in his book of Prophecies that you would subscribe to Top 5 Scary for the best scary stories and content on the web. Was he right? Because I'm pretty sure he was right. Here's an ominous one for you.
Humans, it says, are without doubt responsible for global warming and will pay an ever-increasing price. That includes more of what we've already seen this year: parched fields, forests on fire, and deadly heat.
Like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea. The Black Sea's living fish shall all but boil. When Rhodes and Genoa half-starved shall be, the local folk to cut them up shall toil. Well, thankfully, we're not quite at the point of literal boiling fish in the sea, but that's not to say we're not rapidly approaching that reality. It's easy to interpret Like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea, as a warning for the increasing rise in temperatures we've seen across the globe this year. 2022 has already been a record-breaking year for climate change, and not in a way that's particularly good for anybody. July of 2022 was one of the hottest months globally, among the top 10 hottest in global history. But it's fine, I'm sure. We just need to walk to work a little bit more, use paper straws, and we'll really get a handle on this thing. The death of coral reefs, eradication of natural habitats, and the worrisome decline in fish populations worldwide could all point to Nostradamus being right about this one, predicting boiling fish and the common folk starving. Not trying to scare you too much, but some experts predict that if we keep going at the rate we're at, the world's oceans could be totally empty of all fish by 2048. For my own sake, I sincerely hope Nostradamus is wrong about us in this one, because if I'm ever at a pub and I can't get a clam chowder or fish and chips, I just don't know that any of this will be worth it anymore. Number 3, a world at war. War! What is it good for? Absolutely nothing, I think, is the usual accepted answer. Well, that good-for-nothing horseman of the apocalypse is always rearing its head, and Nostradamus predicted that we'd be experiencing a lot of them. A passage reads, "Blue head shall white head harm in such degree, as France's good to both shall e'er amount." Now, I gonna be honest with you, I have no idea what that means. That doesn't really sound like much, unless there's a war of blue-headed people. I found one reading saying that this was predicting that France would be beaten at the World Cup, which is definitely possible, but I feel like Nostradamus would shoot a little higher than making sports bets. Most analysts seem to think that this points towards a war, so take a listen to this passage as well. This one reads, 7 months the great war, people dead of evil doing. Ruin ever shall not fall to the king. Now this prediction spells it out a little more clearly. Nostradamus thinks that there's going to be a great war that will spill over and into Europe, and that France will be a key player and a battleground for it. It's easy to see why this prediction could ring true, especially with how things are, going the way they are right now. There's already enough tension brewing, and I think the threat of a world war is something that's kind of looming in the back of everyone's minds already while we watch the news. While there is always a war burning somewhere across this globe, this prediction specifically outlines that this could evolve into something much, much bigger. Into a great war, possibly, instead of one of those humble good ones. I'm joking, of course, there are no good ones. Possibly involving the entire planet in a global conflict. And while I'm sure a great war might make for a few good Hollywood action movies years after the fact, I think we should all work to avoid a third world war. Most trilogies usually have a really disappointing third one, Let's just hope for our sake that Nostradamus isn't accurate on this one. Number 2, an asteroid. A great fire will fall from the sky for 3 nights. The cause will appear both stupefying and marvelous. Shortly afterwards, there will be an earthquake. I doubt Nostradamus had ever seen fireworks, so the prediction of this being that we're all gonna have a great party with fireworks for 3 days and then we're gonna party so much it'll rumble the earth, I don't think that's super likely. No, fire from the sky and earthquakes are never a good thing. That's usually kind of the symptoms of like apocalyptic stuff alongside boiling seas and demon walking the earth, fire raining down. Now this line could refer to a couple things, possibly. It could be alluding to something man-made, like a strike of some kind. But translators and experts of Nostradamus' writings believe that this could be referring to an asteroid strike on the planet with devastating impact. Asteroids pass by the Earth every single day already, and the likelihood of one colliding with the planet and causing serious damage is a real possibility, and all of us going the way of the dinosaurs. Fortunately for us, NASA has been cooking up predictions of their own, and they assure us that there is no danger of any collisions on record for 2022, or for the next 100 years, for that matter, claims a recent study. The asteroid Apophis was said to be flying worryingly close to Earth's orbit, on track for a possible collision in 2029, and as well, a slight risk of collision in 2068. But thankfully, continued monitoring and updated scans have shown that everything should be all clear for the next 100 years. Nice to know that the seer can get wrong every once in a while, Keeps them humble. Of course, there is always the possibility, like I mentioned, that great fire falling from the sky could be referring to something a little darker than an asteroid. Like I said, maybe something man-made or something a bit more cosmic, like say a celestial fire of some kind. Speaking of celestial fires, actually funny, that's so funny, I was just talking about celestial fires earlier. Let's get on to the next point, which is number 1, Celestial Fire and the New World Order. Celestial Fire and the New World Order sounds like they would have been the absolute coolest 80s prog rock supergroup. I bet their first album was fantastic and the rest of them fell off. Disregard that fantasy for a minute, and let's get back to the topic at hand. Nostradamus' predictions. In his big old book of prophecies, Nostradamus wrote that there would be a celestial fire on the royal edifice. So what does that mean? King Charles's house is about to catch fire? Well, something about the word celestial really throws this one for me. You know, celestial is not an adjective that you just toss in willy-nilly. I feel like that's reserved for when something is descending from the cosmos, end of days, apocalypse stuff. Well, not to worry, this prediction gets worse. They always get worse. The prediction goes on to state that through the ashes of this celestial fire on the royal edifice will rise a new order. Hey, another prog rock group. And that an unlikely alliance between two great powers will come together. What those two great powers could be, though, is anyone's guess. Is it Marvel and DC? Apple and Android? Coke and Pepsi? Whoever it may be, it's said that things will never be the same and the alliance's effect will not be good for us. Now, Nostradamus wrote many predictions on the royal family, and some even claim that he accurately predicted Queen Elizabeth's passing. He had this to add on about King Charles specifically. Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who they later considered unworthy, the people will force out the king of the islands. A man will replace who never expected to be king. Could this be referring to King Charles being replaced in favor of a new king? Could this be related to this new world order Nostradamus is predicting, with someone no one ever expected to be king, and that unlikely alliance getting formed? We're not sure yet, but as time goes on, more and more of Nostradamus' predictions keep turning out to be true, so we'll find out soon enough, I'm sure, and you'll find out here. Number 5. World War III. In his big book of predictions, known as his Quatrains, Nostradamus wrote that 7 months the Great War, people dead of evil doing. Rowan Evru shall not fall to the king. Now, if you've watched any of our videos on Nostradamus, you'll know that he usually keeps his predictions pretty vague and cryptic, as a centuries-old mystic astrologer is wont to do. But here he's treating us to a prediction so easy to read, even I can follow along. Nostradamus predicts that there will be a great war, and that if the quatrain is anything to go off of, Europe will be the theater for the conflict. But in a small hope spot for the city of Rouen, France, they are not going to fall to the king. Good for them. That's the only city he specified is going to be okay. Now, who could this king be referring to? A world leader? An army, maybe? The mascot for Burger King? I know if any fast food mascot is going to start a world war, it is absolutely that guy, although Grimace has always been a wild card. Don't trust him even a little bit. Now, obviously, jokes aside, this is a tense subject. The current situation in Europe is already a cause for serious global stress, and no one wants to see it develop any further, especially into a great war. Although that's a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? I'm not sure if great is the right word to describe any wars. Maybe in size, sure, but I don't think anyone involved in an international war would describe it to you as a great time. The quatrain doesn't specify when, but with the world watching Europe now, it's definitely on the back of all of our minds that we hope this doesn't come true. Let's take a break from bumming each other out talking about global conflicts. You having fun with the channel? Toss a subscribe our way to catch it all. Number 4. Asteroids. A great fire will fall from the sky for 3 nights. The cause will appear both stupefying and marvelous. Shortly afterwards, there will be an earthquake. Ever since a big rock wiped out the dinosaurs, I think it's been a little bit on the back of our minds worrying that maybe something like that might happen to us someday. If something is going to stop a T-Rex, I don't even feel a little bit confident about my odds. This quatrain here makes it seem like we've got to be watching the skies. And while I certainly hope this is just Nostradamus referring to the world's best 4th of July celebration and a whole long weekend fireworks session, people who spend a whole lot more time than me reading about Nostradamus theorize that this could be referring to an asteroid strike on our sweet blue planet, which is going to be both stupefying and marvelous, which honestly sounds very, very nice were it not for the earthquake. Lucky for us, and terrible for extinction event enthusiasts, sorry, our good friends at NASA have recently demonstrated their DART technology, short for Double Asteroid Redirection Test. And I gotta wonder how many acronyms they tried before landing on that one, because DART sounds so clean. It's a system in place to change the trajectory of asteroids. Successfully, no less. Just a few weeks ago, for the first time in humanity's history, we changed the path of a celestial object. So take that, Nostradamus. Bet you didn't predict we were gonna go to space to push something out of the way. And hey, asteroids, you think you're so tough? Well, take that, never-ending cosmos and unending might of the eternal stars. We're just gonna push you right out of the way. We don't care. Number 3, celestial fire. And before we move forward, we really gotta think of a nickname for this guy. Nostradamus is just a mouthful and a half. Mussy? No, that's way worse. Okay, never mind. We're just gonna keep calling him Nostradamus for now. You know what, if you ghouls and goblins can think of a good Nostradamus nickname, throw that down in the comments because I am spending so much time saying this guy's name. Our favorite Farsi and Frenchman with no good nicknames wrote in his big book of predictions that there will be a celestial fire on the royal edifice. So what does that mean for us? What is a celestial fire if not a Destiny 2 melee ability? Warlocks are going to dominate a new Crucible map? It's unlikely, as Nostradamus' predictions on Destiny's meta have frequently been inaccurate, and most historians believe he actually would have played a Voidwalker instead of a Dawnblade. Experts in transcribing Nostradamus' work believe that this excerpt from his poetry could be referring to the destruction of the royal palace, with many believing it to refer to the royal family in the UK. So should King Charles put a big fireproof umbrella over Buckingham Palace? Some have suggested that this could be far more dramatic, referring to Buckingham Palace being completely destroyed and from its ashes a new power rising. The prophet continues to say that an unlikely alliance will occur of two great powers that will come together. Now, who would this new world order be? Benevolent, to lead us to a new golden age, or dark new overlords to oppress us all? It's always a possibility that it could be reptile people. Number 2, man-eating? No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat, that man is stirred his fellow man to eat in his despair. Now, at first, this seems like the ramblings of an old man who just came back from Walmart and saw the price of honey and is going off on a tirade. But that little snippet about man eating his fellow man sticks out just a little bit, doesn't it? This prediction is pretty directly doomsaying, with our good friend and master of mysticism, Nostradamus, suggesting that in the future, things are going to get so bad that food is going to become so expensive that the common fella won't be able to afford any honey, wheat, or Honey Nut Cheerios, and will be pushed in desperation to start eating his fellow man. Hey, there really was not a lot going on back then if the scariest thing he could think of was honey getting so expensive that it would cause a full-on societal breakdown and cause us all to start eating man. You think they're gonna sell that in grocery stores? Obviously this one is a bit drastic as far as his predictions go, and definitely a bit scary unless you're the kind of person that watches The Walking Dead and wishes, gosh, I wish that was me. And if you are, you should probably talk to someone, they just want to help. But there is some truth to this. Prices of basic groceries are going up and up every year. I mean, you can walk into the Walmart and see the price of honey yourself, with inflation creeping its ugly little head a little more each year. It's been a consistent concern as well that bees are going to go extinct in our lifetime, with the population of honeybees declining rapidly yearly. For our sake, and the bees, we need to do something to save the planet, if not just for the ecosystem and the planet as a whole, but also because apparently if we run out of honey, that's the first thing that causes us to all start going Texas Chainsaw Massacre on each other. Number 1, Great Discord. The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Like most of Nostradamus' writings, this one sounds a bit like the opening monologue to one of the Lord of the Rings movies. And wow, hey, honey again. Honey was a really serious cause of concern for this guy. I think if nothing else, Nostradamus took his morning tea incredibly seriously. So besides crying over spilled milk and honey, what do the experts have to say about this one? Was Nostradamus banned from his Discord server and writing out against the tyrannical mods? Well, like most of the predictions on this list, this unnerving quatrain seems to suggest that dire violence will plague us, with unrest between the classes leading to full-scale rebellion and riots. This little ditty seems to support that, with Nostradamus writing that sooner and later you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances. Well, I don't know about you, but I support great changes definitely, though I'm a little less sure about dreadful horrors and vengeances. The last few years have seen more civil unrest than ever, with it seeming like there's a mass-scale protest or riot every couple of weeks somewhere in the world. It's easy to flick on the news and see that and wonder if it's eventually going to hit a boiling point, and when it does, if we'll see some serious changes, or at the very least, some positive progress towards the price of honey. Because I'm really not looking to get eaten by anyone anytime soon. I'm just, look at me, I'm so twiggy, I will barely even make a good snack. Just pass me over, okay?